Beth Greenwood shrugged herself into the too big sweater her grandmother knitted last Christmas, filled a mug with strong dark coffee, and took the large silver key from its hook in the hall. She didn't bother to comb her hair, and despite the frost covering the ground outside, she remained barefoot. There were 15 steps from her back door to the garden shed she used as a writing room. Each one made her toes tingle, but as soon as she was inside, she wriggled them into her fleece-lined slipper socks and jigged up and down. Her father's old chair was in the corner nearest the electric heater, but in the 3 years since he died, she hadn't dared to move it. So she sat opposite and waited for the warmth to reach her. Her father had never used a desk or a computer to write. He'd sat in his bottle-green, high-backed chair with a tray and a typewriter on his lap. Beth had tried to do the same, but her lap was too small and the typewriter too big. So now it perched precariously on a small fold-out table that wobbled whenever she punched the letter B. She glanced at the clock. 6 a.m. 1 hour's writing time before the people of Oxford started to wake and she was expected at the office. She should probably be using the time to do yoga or curl her hair, but this time of the morning was her favourite part of the day. Her father had been a night owl. He'd prefer to tuck himself away and write while the world drank wine in pubs or binge-watched Netflix. Her boyfriend, Harry, was the same, always texting at absurd times of the night when he was up late working. But Beth liked mornings. Even if she only managed a few words, it made her feel like she'd snatched some time that the rest of the world had been too busy sleeping to enjoy. Today, she was supposed to be writing a blog post about backpacks, the best backpacks to take on a European city break. Soul-suckingly boring, but the kind of quick, easy-to-read content that people craved. A listicle, they called it, a cross between an article and a list. But she just couldn't bring herself to do it. She knew she should be writing material that would generate traffic for her site, that getting visitor numbers up was the only way she'd start making money. But mostly, whenever she tried to write to a template or a style that was popular, she ended up going off-piste and writing something entirely different. On the shelf behind her, wedged next to a well-thumbed copy of The Great Railway Bazaar, was the iPad Harry had bought her. Nearly every time he saw her, he tutted and said that it was utterly ridiculous of her to write her posts on the typewriter and then go through the rigmarole of typing them up on her laptop. But Beth found it almost impossible to think without the clunk-clunk of the keys, and so, to prove him wrong, she'd successfully ignored the iPad for almost 2 whole months. Her father would never have used an iPad to write. He was a different kind of writer, a real travel writer. He'd written travel guides, magazine articles, and just before he died, he'd started work on his 7th book. Beth sighed and sipped her coffee. Every inch of wall inside the shed was covered with postcards, newspaper clippings, and photographs celebrating her father's illustrious career. And every time she looked at them, she felt disappointed in herself. He had always told her to follow her dreams. He'd told her that when she turned 18, they would go on an incredible journey that would fill her head with wonder and inspiration, and then maybe they'd write a book together, persuade Mum to travel with them. His favourite place in the world was Canada. It was the first place he went when he started writing for magazines, and he'd always longed to take her mother to Niagara Falls. But then he'd gotten sick. Their magical trip never happened. And now Beth was 29 years old and still working as a non-travelling travel agent with Cooper's, a small independent firm that specialised in exotic honeymoons, but hadn't managed to spread its wings much further than Oxfordshire. Cooper's was where she'd met Harry, dependable, typewriter-hating Harry. Harry with his coordinated suits, perfect hair, and clear-cut path to upper management. Harry who had absolutely no desire to travel, and every desire for Beth to settle down and accept that writing for fun was fine, but writing in the hope of building a career would lead to nothing but disappointment. In the beginning, their differences hadn't seemed to matter very much. Beth had been so wrapped up in her father's illness, and Harry had been charming and easy and so good at taking charge. He'd driven her to the hospital, distracted her with romantic home-cooked meals, stood by her side at the funeral, let her yell and cry and spend all day eating chocolate on the couch. But now the mist was clearing. She found him irritating. And she knew that was awful of her.